Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the late start. Please stand for the pledge and remain standing. Thank you. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you all. Roll call, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Dickey.
Here.
Vice Mayor Friedel.
Present.
Councilmember McMahon. Here. Councilmember Charno.
Here, but not present.
Councilmember Magazine.
Here.
Councilmember Spellich.
Present.
Councilmember Guzbowski.
Present. Thank you so much. Couple of changes. Item 8C is going to be postponed till the 18th, meeting on the 18th. And I'm going to change the order of a couple of these proclamations, so that's all. Our first item, as always, are reports from our town manager, mayor, and council.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to report, as the public is aware, last night we had quite a bit of a windstorm, high gusty winds, and I'm pleased to report that other than a few trees that went down and some minor damage, which we're still compiling, it looks like we sustained very little damage, but we are in the process of gathering information just in case we need to submit a claim to our insurer. That's all I have to report at this time.
Mayor, good evening, everybody. I attended the Pedestrian and Traffic Safety Committee, and I want to thank Justin Weldy and the staff for accomplishing all the checklists and the boxes to make our town safer with all the improvements. So thank you, everybody. And we attended the Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation Annual Town Conference, and that was really great to, after all COVID, to meet in person and meet all the stakeholders and collaborate and look forward to the future collaboration, And also, Saturday night I attended the International Dark Sky Moon Viewing. Thank you, Ted. It was really a great evening, and ASU was there recording the event, so we had a few telescopes out there, or they did, and it was really a nice evening. And today I attended the Maricopa County Association of Governments Economic Development Committee meeting, and it's MAG leads the regional transportation planning for the county, and we are experiencing unprecedented growth and economic prosperity in our region and state, which is going to continue for years to come. And MAG is diligently working to bring Proposition 400 dedicated half-a-cent sales tax extension to the voters so that we will retain billions of dollars to our economy, improve our infrastructure, and be able to handle all this growth. So thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Recently, we all attended a town branding session, so that was interesting to hear everybody's input on that as the town works to rebrand their image. I had the privilege of attending the homecoming parade for our Falcon football team with Council-elect Brenda Kay, and they won the game, by the way, 52-14, and their record right now is 3-2. So they have a couple of games left, so let's get everybody out there and cheer them on. I also did attend the joint session with Fort McDowell, and it's interesting to me that they have so many things going on over there, and we worked on some issues with communication and that kind of thing, so we'll be better prepared from both sides to help with that. And this month is Domestic Violence Month, and the town, as it has in the past, will be coloring the fountain purple on Wednesday nights, so in acknowledge of domestic violence, and I'll also be reading a proclamation a little bit later on that. And then on a sad note, we lost a valued member of our society today, not today, but this past week, Judy Rutkowski, who served 2 terms on our school board here in town and taught religious ed and sang in the choir for one of our churches. passed away, so I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. She will be missed on the school board as well. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mike, did you have anything to report?
No, no report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilman?
Like most of us, attended the joint meeting with the leadership of Yavapai Nation. And I just want to tell people and tell the public that they have a very good website that's worth looking at with a lot of activities.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. An hour and a half ago, the council and some citizens and the fire department and MCSO showed up to the corner of El Pueblo Boulevard and Dull Knife on what would have been Dr. C.T. Wright's 80th birthday. And I sponsored a street sign to be named after C.T. Him and his wife Mary lived at the corner of, or lived on on Dull Knife. Just briefly, for those of you who didn't know C.T. or you never had the pleasure of meeting him, he was just an amazing human being. He relocated here to Fountain Hills in 1999 with his wife. Dr. Wright had a doctorate from Boston University and was the executive director. He was appointed by Governor Jan Brewer to be the executive director of the Governor's Executive Clemency Board, where he served on that all the way up until his time of passing. And he was also on the school board for, Mayor, I don't know, 14 years? 14? We tried figuring that out forever. And anybody that met Dr. Wright, I mean, I can truly say that he absolutely never had a bad word to say about anybody, and he was an amazing human being, and we honored him today, and thank you.
I was invited, the National Parks and Recreation Association had their national conference here in Phoenix, and I was attended to go play on the exhibit hall. All of our businesses have conferences, and we all have exhibits where you get to see vendors that do whatever it is that you do. Let me tell you, the National Parks and Recreation Exhibit Hall was way fun. I am a little bummed I didn't get to play on the playground equipment that was out there, but I did manage to break Musco Lighting's monitor that they had out. I call it quality control. I didn't break it. I helped them understand that there was a software glitch that they needed to work on. He's not here today, is he? That's good, because that was embarrassing. Anyway, it was super cool. They're not in Phoenix very often. Obviously, it's a national conference, so they're all over the country, so I was really pleased that I got invited. I also attended the Leadership Academy's Know Your Government Day, and with most of the other council, I attended the Joint Tribal and Town Councils meeting. And I also virtually attended the Greater Phoenix Economic Council Ambassador meeting on affordable housing. Before I talk about it, a quick reminder that affordable housing does not mean Section 8 housing. What the discussion was about attainable housing, less expensive housing, maybe density, bigger density, so that the teachers and the retail workers and your restaurant workers have a place to live. The people that work in our town need to be able to live in our town. These people are needed to keep our community prospering. Even our own children can't afford to live here right now. So that was what this particular meeting was about. We didn't have any resolutions. It was just a joint meeting to help us realize how important affordable housing is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, I want to thank David for initiating and sponsoring the naming of the street for C.T. Wright. And again, to the family and friends of School Board Member Judy Rakowski, we hope they accept our sympathy and our appreciation for her service to our community on the school board and in other ways. I met with the superintendent of the school district. We'll be holding regular meetings. We had recently had our joint meeting here with Judy and others, and it's a very collaborative partnership. I recently learned at the league about something called the Arizona Mayor's Roundtable. I really am embarrassed that I didn't know about it. It's really mayors wanting to collaborate with school districts all through the state. I'm going to be joining that meeting. Grady agreed, and the superintendent have agreed to be part of that. And I'll find out more about it tomorrow. It'll be my first meeting, but again, we talk about the schools all the time being our largest employers, and you know, it really is an economic development driver. So we're gonna be looking at that. The chamber and others are graciously thanking us for our participation with Oktoberfest, which I hope everyone got to go to. It was a wonderful evening. I'm sorry to miss the homecoming, but I was happy to see the score. Mag Regional Council, again, that Prop 400 is just so important, and we heard air quality. I think, Brady, you heard it also, an air quality report, which is, there's work to be done in the valley. Also, the Know Your Government with Leadership class is just a very productive day. We started out, you know, we all had our presentations, and then it was the part I liked at the lunch was when, and Brenda was there to have people speak and ask questions, whatever, kind of open forum. So that was really awesome. The Pedestrian Traffic Safety Committee will be reporting to us soon at a meeting. And last of all, obviously, the Fort McDowell, they talked about the FAA. You know, we always talk about these flight path items. Prop 200, which is where they grant us a lot of help for mostly tourism, and also they help the school district. They have Orm Dam Days coming soon, so just keep an eye on that. You know, this is our wonderful time of year, so anyway, we will move on now. You can see we have a lot of proclamations. I'm going to just switch the order because the first two, I'll just read from up here. The last one I'll present to our Chief Ott, and then hand it over to Jerry because he's on our MAG Regional Domestic Violence Council, and I would love for our Vice Mayor to be able to read that. So the first one is that it is Arizona Cities and Towns Week. Whereas the citizens of Fountain Hills rely on the town to experience a high quality of life in our community, and whereas cities and towns in Arizona work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to deliver vital services such as fire, police, and emergency medical response to ensure safe communities. And whereas cities and towns in Arizona also provides services and programs that enhance the quality of life for residents, such as parks, utilities, street maintenance, sanitation and recycling services, libraries, community centers, and recreational programs. And whereas it's important for Fountain Hills to continue to provide the excellent delivery of services and programs that our citizens have come to expect in our community, and it's one of the responsibilities of town officials to ensure open and accessible government through frequent communication with citizens using various avenues and means. And whereas through participation and cooperation, citizens, community leaders, local businesses, and municipal staff can work together to ensure that services provided by the town can remain exceptional and exceptional elements of the quality of life in our community. Therefore, I, Jenny Dickey, proclaim the town of Fountain Hills joins with the League of Arizona Cities and Towns and fellow municipalities across the state in declaring October 16th through the 22nd as Arizona Cities and Towns Week. So thanks. We recommend that you take a look at all the website, our websites, for all of the wonderful things happening in town. And as Grady pointed out, taking care of storms and some of this stuff is, like you said, 24 hours. The next one is, this is also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I don't believe we have anybody here to accept the proclamation, so I'm just going to read that. Whereas Breast Cancer Awareness Month is a worldwide annual campaign in October involving thousands of organizations to highlight the importance of breast cancer awareness, education, and research. And whereas according to the Centers of Disease and Prevention, breast cancer is the most common cancer among women. 1 in 8 women in the United States will be diagnosed in her lifetime. And whereas an estimated 287,850 new cases will be diagnosed in women in the U.S. this year, and 43,250 women will die. And although rare, 2,710 men will be diagnosed this year in the U.S., and approximately 530 will die. And whereas there are over 3.8 million breast cancer survivors in the United States, thus increasing the public's knowledge about the importance of early detection, regular screening, followed by timely treatment upon diagnosis can significantly improve a patient's chance of survival. And whereas Breast Cancer Awareness Month is an opportunity to unite all citizens in our community to prevent deaths and recognize survivors, those currently battling the disease, their friends and families of a diagnosed patient, and applaud the efforts of our medical professionals and researchers working to find a cure. I declare October 2022 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month and call upon everyone to publicly reaffirm our nation's strong and continuing commitment to controlling and finding a cure. The next to last proclamation is Fire Prevention Week, and I've come down and present this to our chief. This is our chief right up here. So, whereas the town of Fountain Hills is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living and visiting Fountain Hills, whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at the greatest risk from fire. And home fires caused 2,580 civilian deaths in the United States in 2020. Fire departments in the United States responded to 356,500 home fires. And whereas smoke alarms sense smoke well before you can, alerting you to danger in the event of fire, which you may have as little as 2 minutes to escape safely. Working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported fires in half. Fountain Hills residents should be aware and know that everyone in the home understands the sound of their smoke alarm and knows how to respond. And whereas Fountain Hills residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. Fountain Hills residents will make sure their smoke and carbon monoxide alarms meet the needs of all their family members, including those with sensory or physical disabilities. And whereas the town first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrences of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education, and residents that are responsive to public education measures are better able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. Whereas 2022 Fire Prevention Week theme is Fire Won't Wait, Plan Your Escape, effectively serves to remind town residents it's important to have a home fire escape plan. Therefore, I do proclaim October 9th through 15th as Fire Prevention Week throughout this town. I urge the people of Fountain Hills to plan and practice a home fire escape for Fire Prevention Week and support the many public safety activities and efforts of our town's fire and emergency services. Want to say something there, Dave?
Thank you, Mayor. And we are planning on doing some education over at McDowell Mountain Elementary School the week of the 17th. So Fire Prevention Week kind of falls during fall break. So we decided to give them that week off, but we'll be back with them when they come back. So thank you very much.
Appreciate everything you've done.
Thanks, Mayor. So the Town of Fountain Hills Proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas home should be a place of warmth, unconditional love, and tranquility, for most of us, home and family can indeed be counted among our greatest blessings, and tragically for many Americans, these blessings are tarnished by violence and fear. And women, men, young children, and the elderly are all counted among the victims of domestic violence. And physical injury and deaths occur, and emotional scars are often permanent. Law enforcement officials, shelters, hotline services, healthcare providers, the clergy, and concerned citizens are all helping in the effort to end domestic violence. And we must recognize the compassion and dedication of these volunteers and professionals, applaud their efforts, and increase public understanding of this important problem. And whereas the Town Council approved a resolution 2013-44 on August 15th, 2013, expressing support for the Start by Believing campaign through the End of Violence Against Women International Organization. Now, therefore, I, Ginny Dickey, Mayor of the Town of Fountain Hills, Arizona, do hereby proclaim the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Fountain Hills, and urge all citizens to observe this month by becoming aware of the tragedy of domestic violence and supporting community efforts in working toward its end. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We really appreciate you serving on the committee, on the Regional Council. Our next item, public appearances. We don't have any, correct? Call to the public. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mayor, we do.
Thanks. When you come up, don't say your actual address, but please say if you're from Fountain Hills.
First, we have Crystal Kavanaugh.
Crystal Kavanaugh, Fountain Hills resident. Good evening to all of you. With so many other costs that Fountain Hills may be experiencing, such as lawsuit consequences, extensive community center repairs, street repairs, and other park maintenance costs, why does the town continue to push for the development of 5 acres for a passive neighborhood park at the corner of Desert Canyon and Sunridge Drive? Many living in our Sunridge community either know nothing about this plan or do not want it. And it is irrelevant to me that the town recently gathered a few neighbors who live across from it, called them a focus group, and tried to reduce their opposition. Our HOA has been provided with very little information regarding where this currently stands, except to say that there are plans for another community survey after sending out the previously flawed one in the past. The bottom line is that it is unnecessary spending. It seems like you just look for ways to spend, 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 which includes the current pursuit of an unaffordable roundabout at Saguaro and Avenue of the Fountains. I also find it offensive that the town's response to opposition of this unneeded passive park is to make statements such as, well, you know, this was originally slated to be a fire station. This is better than that, right? Almost like a threat as to what could be placed there if we didn't support the passive park. Why push to develop this town-owned land at all, just for the sake of developing? Could it not just as easily remain a small patch of natural preserve at less cost? Originally, our Parks Department listed this in a previous budget as trailhead access, but once the HOA opposed the crossing of their property to assess the non-existent trailhead, this apparently was dropped back to just the passive park, no restrooms or amenities, with a walking path, and now with the possibility of a scaled-down parking lot. There is a very nice sidewalk that goes from the corner of Palisades all along Sunridge Drive up towards North Heights. There is plenty of paved walking available in the Sunridge Canyon neighborhoods, with sidewalks available on at least one side of all the streets. Spend a few dollars to place some nice benches along the way if warranted. Again, I ask, why is there such a strong push to spend more money for something as unnecessary as this passive neighborhood park that most of the Sunridge neighbors oppose when they are made aware of it? Golden Eagle Park is nearby and has much more to offer the community and could likely use the funds. There are other neighborhoods that may want or need such a park. There are plenty of opportunities to use this money to improve existing park projects. Direct this money to where it is needed or wanted or where it will be more beneficial. As with other issues, I encourage the new council to revisit this project if it is not too late by then. Thank you.
Is Barry or Kimberly Wolborski here?
I'm not Kimberly.
You're not. So is it just going to be you, Mr.
Yes.
Wolborski? Okay.
I'm Barry Wolborski, and I am a resident of Fountain Hills. And I want to talk about the parking, no parking signs that are in front of the community center here. My wife and I do a lot of walking around town, and we like to walk downtown, and it's sometimes convenient to park in that parking lot over there. But now there's no parking lot signs in there that say, and I have a video, or I sent a video. Do you have that?
It was a,
Okay, so you have a copy of it. And it's basically pretty clear. It says, nobody can park there except on community center business. In other words, and it specifically says you can't park there for the businesses on the Ave, you can't park there for the bus stop, you can park there only for community center business. And I have a problem with that. It's like we have a bus stop that's totally unusable unless people are within walking distance, because there is absolutely nowhere to park near the bus stop, number one. Number two, you'll not be able to legally use the lot for events on the avenue or at the fountain. Now, I've been told, well, the police may not enforce it, but as I understand the law, it's not up to the police to enforce or not to enforce. It's up for the politicians to make laws that establish what the police do. Number three, barring cars to shop in the businesses, at the businesses, which I don't think many do, but it still seems pretty business unfriendly to me. Number four, there are never events on the city center on Sunday. Why does the sign say every day? If the sign's going to say anything, it should say Monday through Saturday. Are people not wanted to park there on Sunday for some reason? And last but not least, as many times as I drive past there, which is quite frequently because the mailbox is across the street, I've only ever seen that lot full maybe 3 or 4 times. Most of the time I drive by there, it's either empty or almost empty. Is this really necessary, and is this friendly to the citizens of this town?
Madam Mayor, I'm going to have the Public Works follow Mr. and Mrs. Raborski. I'm sorry, I was trying to pronounce your name correctly. We had a chance to talk about this. These signs were updated, and there was an error made on the signs. They are intended really to only be no overnight parking in the parking lot so that cars could be cited. Would you mind kind of explaining what you're going to do to correct the signs? But it's not on the agenda, so we really can't get into it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. Obviously, we have a minor typo. I did not catch that. We will make correction to it. The intent is that there is no overnight parking allowed on the town hall campus, and that error will be corrected as soon as possible.
And thank you very much for bringing that to our attention, because that was never the intent, sir.
That's it for speaker cards for call to the public.
Thank you very much. Next is our consent agenda. Does anybody want to take anything off? Oh, that's okay. You can.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Our first item on our regular agenda, I don't know why all these dudes are here, but it's a Dark Sky Discovery Center discussion. Grady, are you going to start off?
Yes, I'm going to have our Development Services Director, John Wesley, give a staff report, and he'll give the presentation on this, and then the applicant will have an opportunity to come up to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll have a brief background report to give you some information on the plans that have been submitted to date, and then I believe Joe Bill from the Discovery Center's also got some information to present. So back in 2019, the Town Council agreed to allow the land to the south of the library area to be used for a Dark Sky Discovery Center. And so that group has been working over these last several years to prepare plans for that and secure some funding for that. They have submitted to the town the site plan that they propose to construct on that property. And so staff is reviewing that. As part of that process, because it's on town property, we wanted the council to be involved in giving us feedback so that we can then complete the process of that site plan review. So that's what we're here for this evening, is to get your comments, if you have any, on this, and we will provide those comments back as part of our overall staff process. Then, as this moves forward, again, they'll continue to raise funds. We'll be back to council with a lease agreement when we get to that point in the process, and that will be necessary before we actually then get into the building permit phase. So there are several steps to go yet on this. This is kind of the first opportunity to get council input and direction. So again, we'll get to the plans here in just a minute, but this is a process that's normally done just on the staff level, but because it's town property, we are seeking your input. Once we get your input, we'll combine it with other town comments, and if everything, unless something comes up again, though, that we think council needs to look at, staff will finish that review process. So again, the hatched area shows where the site is proposed to the south of the library and across from the community center. Another view of it. So this does include property that's currently part of the community gardens, and so that will be relocated, and we'll show that here in a minute. Here's an outline of the proposed plan for the center. The main entry into the Dark Sky Discovery Center will be in this location right off the Centennial Circle. Again, Mr. Bill will be able to give better explanations of the, what I believe is the, I'm going to have the names wrong in there, I just jumped a bunch ahead, a bunch. Okay, I don't want to do that anymore. I'll quit trying to use the pointer to, I'll quit trying to use the pointer to highlight the areas. It's just if I do this, the people at home can't see.
John, having a little trouble hearing you.
Okay, I'll try to get just a little bit closer. But the main entry, the theater, the telescope, and then a planetarium make up some of the main functions of this. There's an outside patio. To the east side here, we'll have some telescopes also for use. So this is the elevation, again, looking from that front off of the Centennial Circle. And you can see some of the materials and shapes proposed. And this is from the parking lot looking to the east of what the site will look like. And that's really my presentation, pretty high-level overview, because I know Mr. Bill has more extensive information showing some of the interior of the site. So do you have any questions of me at this time?
Any questions for John? Yes, Councilwoman.
Hi, John. I want to know about the parking. You know, the community center is really busy. The library can be. I know they're moving the garden, et cetera, but you have slated about 138 parking spaces. Is this sufficient for the anticipated amount of visitors, et cetera? Is there any plans for overflow or where school buses or anything will be?
Mayor, council member, yes, they have employed a professional traffic engineer to look at the site to do that traffic parking analysis on this. The parking lot to the west of the community garden and south of the library contains about 138 spaces. As they have looked at it, the combined usage, as I recall from the different uses, they're anticipating on a regular basis about, as I recall, 67 spaces being needed to meet the peak demands of the different uses, leaving still 70 spaces or so for additional parking. So there is still quite a bit of space available for larger events that may occur at these facilities. And so it seems to us as staff that parking will be handled very well. As far as the bus parking, that's an issue that we're still looking at just a little bit. The town engineer, public works director, I think have been looking at that a little closer and may have some comments they want to make about where they think that will happen. But whether it be in some of the spaces within the parking lot or potentially along La Montana where the bus stops, where the bus stop is, that would be a good location for a bus then to park, maybe even load and unload from that location, because that bus comes very infrequently, so it'd be available most of the time. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So is Mr. Bill going to come up now?
Yes, I'm going to get his presentation up here, I think, and he's...
Hi.
Hi. Joe Bill, Fountain Hills resident and president of the International Dark Sky Discovery Center. Mayor Dickey, members of the council, as you might suspect, we are delighted to be at this stage of our project. It has been quite a road, and what I'd like to do is just very quickly show you the road that we've been on for 7 years. So you can see here that it started way back, actually it started in 2015. A group of us got together and decided that maybe we should try to preserve our natural dark skies here in Fountain Hills. And we learned about the International Dark Sky Association, and the first thing we learned is, well, we're going to have to update our outdoor lighting ordinance in order to even begin the process. And so we did that, and in 2016, November, it was unanimously approved by the council to update our outdoor lighting ordinance. So then we decided to go ahead, but we went back to the council to seek approval to actually pursue the dark sky designation, because it's something for the town. It's not for the Fountain Hills Dark Sky Association or any other organization. It's for the town of Fountain Hills. And that was approved. So then we went to work on fulfilling all the requirements, and in January of 2018, as some of you know, we did receive that designation of being the 17th International Dark Sky Community in the world. Well, that's kind of rare next to a metropolitan area, and it's quite prestigious. And so we thought, well, what else can we do? And so we gathered a number of community leaders, and some of you were involved, that I see here today, either up there or in the audience. And we had representatives from the council, the chamber, the school board, and other community leaders. And so after a series of meetings, it was decided that, well, in order to make an impact and have it be sustainable, we needed to have 4 major components: an observatory, a planetarium, an exhibit hall, and a theater. So we went ahead with that. And then we started laying it out, and we said, okay, we're going to need a fair amount of square footage here to do this. Where is this going to go? And so we looked all over Fountain Hills. I know some town staff actually helped point out some possible areas, but it all came back, always came back to Centennial Circle. It's got the parking, it's got the infrastructure, it can benefit our downtown businesses, et cetera. So it always came back there. So in November of 2018, we went back to council and sought approval for a facility somewhere in Centennial Circle area. That was approved. Then we went to the next level and got much more detail, much more exact square footage, exactly what the footprint should look like. And then it came down to, look, it's only going to fit, the only thing reasonable really that could work in the Centennial Circle area is in the south side of the Centennial Circle, okay? So that then led to today. So today we are here, as John mentioned, to seek approval for the site plan and the elevation. So let me go through a few things. First, we have an amazing team. We wouldn't be here today if we didn't have some outstanding individuals helping us along the way. So if they could just, those board members who are here, if you could stand up for just a second. You would be amazed at the number of hours that have gone into this project, and we couldn't do it alone, but we also have some other major partners that have helped us. So one of them is Swalback Architecture, and we have representatives here today. We have John and Scott. John, go ahead, stand up. John is a principal at Swalback Architecture, and he lives in Fountain Hills. And Scott Graham, of course, does all the good work for John, right? Yeah. So, so we're delighted to have them on board. They've done an amazing job. We have another major partner represented here tonight, and that's McCarthy Building Companies. And tonight we have Justin Adams and Russ Sanders. And that is another amazing team. So we're delighted to work with them as well. So we started working on the floor plan. This is kind of close to where it got pretty finalized, and this, you can see where we've kind of placed the planetarium, the observatory, the theater, the immersion zone, et cetera. And that led to eventually the footprint that John showed you just a bit earlier. You can see the footprint of the facility. The Centennial Circle is kind of on the right that you can see. The community garden area where it will be relocated is on the left. You can see some parking spaces at the top. That's the library parking lot. And then at the upper right corner is just the corner of the museum and the library. So this gives a good picture of exactly where it will be positioned. And just very quickly, as you know, we have 5 major components. We have the observatory. It'll be the largest telescope in the greater Phoenix area. We'll have a planetarium with about 65 seats and a tilted dome. Inspiration Theater with 150 tiered seats, and an exhibit hall that'll be highly interactive. And this exhibit hall is going to be focused on educating people about the impact of excessive light at night, light pollution, and how it affects not only the sky, but also human health, nocturnal animals, pollinators, et cetera. And then this 5th one that I want to mention is we recently realized that the classroom won't be in use at all times. And so therefore, let's put it to use. And so we're going to have a lot of hands-on displays in there that's going to teach the physics of light. And so we decided to call it the Einstein Exploration Station. That led to this. And this is, as some of you have seen this before, but this is an amazing design that the credit goes to Swalback Architecture. It truly is amazing. This speaks science. This speaks modern. I mean, people will come to see this even without wanting to go in the facility. It's that impressive a design. And I should also mention that we have another major partner that's been working with us, and that's PGAV Destinations. They're based in St. Louis, and they've been working on the interior a lot. And people always say, well, what's the inside going to look like? Well, not that long ago, our board said, you know what, when people walk into the lobby, we should probably have some kind of a wow factor, so when they walk in the door, they go, wow. So, okay, so here's what they came up with. And so, perfect. So the thing is, you have to realize that the board had a second wow, and that was when we saw the price tag. So I just want to let you know, this is not in our budget. It's something we will work toward, depending on how things go, but the design is there. And so it's just a matter of whether we can find the funding to do something like this. Okay, so I'll go through the rest quickly here. This is what the hallway to the planetarium will look like, the hallway to the observatory. This is what it looks like as you enter the immersion zone, the exhibit hall. And so the rest of these all are inside the exhibit hall. This is going to be a display about light pollution and what that looks like. This teaches people about what the Bortle scale is, how dark your skies are. This is going to teach how light impacts bird migration. Over 100 million birds are lost every year because of excessive light. This is about nocturnal animals and what excessive light does to them. This is a little bit about the physics of light. This is how the eye works. This is an area for sky stories. There's a lot of history here. This is archaeoastronomy, and of course the Southwest, as you know, has a lot of archaeoastronomy in the area. The native cultures learned how to figure out when it was the solstice, the equinox, when to plant the corn, etc. So we'll be having that. And then this is, there's going to be a lot of history here about the advance of the astronomy sciences. And lastly, this one you'll like, it has a knowledge quest, okay? So this is how we're going to find out if you paid attention when you go through the immersion zone. Because if you didn't learn anything, you aren't going to do very well at the end. But if you did pay attention, you'll do well. You might get a prize on the way out. So that's our plan there. Okay, so the last thing I have is a 2.5-minute video. I'd like to play it because as you look at the facility and decide whether this is the right kind of elevation for the town, you'll get to see it from all sides. And I think this is the best way to share with you to see it and how it fits on Centennial Circle. So it's 2.5 minutes, and then after that, we'll have questions.
The future is ours to create. The sciences are ours to teach. The next generation is ours to inspire. And human health, nocturnal animals, and dark skies are ours to protect. The mission starts here, in the world's 17th International Dark Sky Community, Fountain Hills, Arizona, with an educational attraction that will benefit the entire state of Arizona and beyond. Presenting the International Dark Sky Discovery Center. Imagine with us a dark sky observatory and looking deep into the cosmos through the largest telescope in the greater Phoenix area. Imagine further a 150-seat inspiration theater using the latest in audiovisual technology to spark the imaginations of future scientists. Envision an immersion zone that captivates the minds of all in an interactive educational experience. And finally, imagine taking young and old on journeys across the universe under the dome of the Hyperspace Planetarium. The 22,000 square foot facility will be a unique international centerpiece of science-based education. Visitors will learn not only the importance of dark skies for opening the window to the observable universe, but also for the well-being of humans, plants, and animals. The journey begins in the lobby as you are introduced to the many experiential opportunities that await. Each experience will cultivate a greater understanding of dark skies, our planet, and the universe. The journey continues as night sets in and magic begins in the Dark Sky Observatory as you view the universe like you never have before. It is a magical experience you will never forget. Help us bring that magic to life. With your donations, the future is ours to create.
Okay. All right. So, yeah. So you can see why we're excited. Here to answer any questions you might have, and then plus we have representatives from the Swabak Architecture as well as the construction company if there are questions along those lines as well. So, are there any questions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Mr. Bill, what is the total cost of the project?
Okay.
And part two,
Yeah.
how close are you to that?
Okay.
And what can we as council members do to help you make your dream become a reality?
Yeah.
Anything other than
Right.
the whopping $400 a month we all get for being on the council? Is there another way we can do anything?
Good question, David. I'm glad you asked it. Basically, our fundraising goal is $25 million. And that includes 3 years of operating expenses because you don't want to open the doors with no money left in your bank account because it takes a little while to build up your grant programs, your all kind of membership programs, everything. So of the 25 million, we have raised 8.5. So we're about 1/3 of the way. And we hope to, we're optimistic. We have a lot of contacts out there. And there are no guarantees in this business, of course, as you know, with fundraising. But we're moving forward. We have a great story to tell. We have a great facility to show. And it's a matter of finding the right, very few people who can make this happen. And that's what we are really focused on right now.
When do you anticipate putting a shovel in the ground?
When we reach that $25 million goal, or close to it, because you don't want to make the mistake of starting a project when you're not sure you're going to have the rest of the money in hand. I would have to leave town if we put walls up and no roof. So basically, our entire board has said we have to get pretty close to our goal, at least with some assurances that we're definitely going to make it before we do anything like that.
Did we have any speaker cards on this item?
Yes, Mayor, we do. We have 2. First is Vicky Dirksen. Oh. Yes, she's for it.
Okay. Thank you, Vicki.
Oh, and Jeff Esposito also wants to comment in writing, and he's for it as well.
Okay.
And that's it.
I just want to, just a couple of words. First of all, when we vote, since I'm on the board, I will be recusing myself. But having said that, you have no idea, the public has no idea what a hardworking board we have. The amount of time they have put in, the expertise they have at their hands is just astonishing. You just saw the tip of the iceberg this evening. We've actually had retreats, all-day retreats to talk about some of the details, and it's just been absolutely remarkable. When this happens, it's going to be a nationwide event. People throughout the country will be talking about this and will be coming to Fountain Hills. It's going to change the face of Fountain Hills. And I just want to personally thank Joe. And by the way, anybody who's watching on Channel 11, anybody has, I don't know, $5, $10, $15 million and wants to have their name on the building, call Joe or his wife Nancy, who is our treasurer. It would be very welcome. So with that, I just want to thank Joe and thank the board.
I'm sure, Mr. Bill, you already thought about this, but did anybody try to make contact with Elon Musk? Because this has got somebody's ego who wants to stroke a huge check, who's got more money than God. This sounds like something that would be right in his wheelhouse.
Well, As a matter of fact, we have reached out, and we've reached out to a lot of key folks like that. And the thing is, all it takes is one person like that to decide to do this, okay? And that's why we've reached out to them. But we also, in the fundraising business, have learned that if they don't have an Arizona connection specifically, it's a little harder. And so there are people in Arizona who have the means to make this happen. And so we definitely are reaching out through various contacts to get those people interested. We have some contacts fairly well made already, but we're trying to really reach the kinds of individuals who can just say, sure, let's do this.
So does he know about this? Do you know that he knows about this?
In the case of Elon Musk, we don't know if it got all the way to his desk, okay? The other thing we learned is that the very wealthy, I'll tell you, they're sort of like guarded, like the guards at Fort Knox. It's very hard to get to them, and some even pay to have their names erased from the internet so that you can't find them. And so it's difficult. And so when you asked earlier about what can you do to help, the message that needs to go out there is the best thing that works is if you know someone who knows someone. And that is what can get us in the door to talk to people. Because once we get a chance to tell the story, we can make a sale. This is a great project.
Thank you
Madam
so.
Mayor?
Oh, yes, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, just real quick, I just wanted to point out, I know it's been talked about before, but I just want to clarify that the price tag includes relocating the community garden, first of all, and then secondly, I know the garden's behind this, and they're going to get the same amount of room, if not more, with the relocation?
Yeah, the answer is yes. In fact, Jerry Butler on our board has been working closely with the garden, and that has been going very well. It's a great new design. We're including some things that they don't have already, like, for instance, a restroom. And so it's a cooperative relationship, and we expect it to go well. And we actually want to work with them because there are some things we can do together that's done nowhere else in the country. And to just kind of show how what our mission, how it relates to plants, nocturnal animals, and we can have some demonstration beds. It's just fun to think about those kinds of options. And I think, Mike, did I miss the first part of your question?
Well, I know the garden's behind it, but I thought I remember that your price tag includes the cost of relocation.
That's right. That's what I missed. Yes, it does.
Okay, great.
Thanks. I think Alan was going to point that out. Well, again, thank you for all the collaboration, not only with your business partners and ASU and the state of Arizona, because they funded some of this, and so we're kind of working on that end a little bit too. All of the board and all of the fine professional work that they've done so far with this has just been amazing, and you and Nancy, of course. One of the things we can do in the future is, the lease will come back to us, the lease with the garden, and making sure that we take everybody into consideration on the things that we can do up here. And again, to just make sure that we get the word out that this is an amazing project that will, like you said, have a lasting, and I think, Alan, you said it, effect on our town, on our businesses. It's it's always been something about Fountain Hills where, we're so unique and beautiful, and what kind of niche, sort of a beautiful opportunity we could have here. And so I wish you the best. I think that you'll probably find support up here for this, and working with John and with Grady and anything else that you need to bring it forward. And then I guess we'll see the lease at some time in the future. Were there any other questions? Yes, sir?
I just want to clarify something that may not have been clear enough. To avoid getting lots of letters and hate mail, I want to make it clear that our board is paying for the relocation of the garden.
Right. Yes.
All right. If there isn't anything else, I will entertain a motion, please.
Move to approve site plan SIT 22-13, subject to staff receiving complete final plans.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
And I recuse myself.
Oh, yes, let the record show. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Our next item is the approval of the sport lighting. I think Rachel's going to do that one.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for having me tonight. I feel fortunate to go following the dark skies discussion because we're going to talk some more about lights. So you guys are kind of primed and ready to go. In this conversation, however, tonight we are going to be talking about our ball field lights. Now, this isn't part of the presentation, but I figure I'm going to take the opportunity that's presented to say a lot of what we're talking about tonight is about lighting our fields and also supporting the dark sky concept of how sports fields and how community use goes hand in hand with that designation. So if there's questions I can answer, please let me know. Otherwise, I am going to talk a little bit about our lights, where we are now and where we'd like to go. So the majority of what we're going to talk about tonight are the Golden Eagle Park ball fields. However, the conversation is about a contract with Musco Lighting. Musco Lighting is our lighting provider for all of our parks. We have field lights in all of our parks other than the Avenue of the Fountains, and our parks are all of different ages. So this contract specifically is earmarked for a large project at Golden Eagle. So that's where we're going to focus most of our discussion tonight. As you might remember, Golden Eagle flooded a number of years ago. But before that, I wanted to go back to the installation. And Councilman Charno, you probably remember, the lights were installed between 1997 and 1999. There's 20 poles. They're all between 70 and 80 feet tall. They have about 175 light fixtures over the course of 4 ball fields. At the time of installation, so in the late 90s, there was a 10-year warranty in effect. We can all do the math. That warranty is no longer valid. It also features metal halide technology, so that is pretty dated technology. It's 25 years old. And at the time of install, we did expect them to last roughly 20 to 25 years. So when we had the flood in 2018, there was a lot of damage done and a lot of surface damage, and that's what we repaired, and you can kind of see some photos there. But we're still finding issues below grade, underground, corrosion, things that got wet that shouldn't have. So we're still kind of dealing with that on a case-by-case basis. So that's really kind of an unknown that we kind of handle as it comes up. So the ball fields, when we redid them in 2018, we saw a tremendous uptick in use. They've always been well-used ball fields, but they are more used today than as far back as I can track. We host more than 35 tournaments annually. Those are generally over weekends, so that means 35 out of 52 weekends we're hosting a ball tournament at the park. It's the home of our senior softball program. It's the home of our Fountain Hills Little League, both baseball and softball programs. It is we host multiple club teams and games and practices out there. We are the home of post-grad sports, and we are a partner facility with the Fountain Hills Unified School District. What does that translate to when I say 35 tournaments annually and all of this different usage? This is what it translates to financially. We've grown to about $65,000 to $68,000 generated annually. You can kind of see the tracking from FY16 through FY21 there. We've increased our partnerships to include more senior tournaments. I'll draw a note there. You can kind of see that dip in FY18. That's a direct impact from the flooding when we had to shut the fields down for the better part of 6 months. But the renovations that we did during that time accelerated us exponentially. You can kind of see that shoot up over FY20 and 21. So it does translate to real dollars and real financial and revenue benefits for the town. I mentioned post-grad sports, and I wanted to call a special attention to them because they are a unique partnership with us. Post-grad sports is a gap year college baseball training and recruiting program. So athletes that finish high school that may not be quite ready yet for recruiting or for college level play, take this program to improve their skills and become more prepared for that, more recruitable. We've established a financial partnership with them. We are their home field. We host them 3 to 4 days a week, basically from August through May, so during the school year. It is a very, very good partnership, not only financially, but they bring national player and MLB exposure to us. They do a number of rehab projects. We've had a number of different MLB pitchers that were working on their rehab come out and use our ball field. I mean, that's national exposure. And then they also support our fields and our programs with donations. They do a number of work days out there to make sure our fields are maintained at the highest level. So this is a really unique partnership, and it's just one of many that we have out there at Golden Eagle Park. Other impacts about our parks. So what else do you need to know about Fountain Hills and our Golden Eagle ballpark fields? Well, it's a user-rated facility. You can go on Google. There's 226 reviews. We have 4.6 stars, which is great. I did pull one of the direct quotes out of there because it is kind of a summary of how we feel about it too. It's an incredible facility for the kids, just like the pros. Playground is also first class, excellent overall. It kind of sums it up. We've done a lot of work on those fields. We've done a lot of work on our reputation to become the premier ball fields in the East Valley. We get a lot of bookings because of the quality of our fields. We're an established destination tournament site. What does that mean? It means that we have teams that come to play from California, Colorado, New Mexico, Texas. People come to be part of those tournaments. And what does that, it translates into tourism, sports tourism. It translates into indirect revenue through hotel stays, restaurants, other spending in our community. So it's all around, it's a very, very big part of what we do. And really lighting is an essential factor to draw those tournaments here. So, why am I talking a lot about these lights? Because we need some new ones. I just mentioned at the beginning of this that these were installed in the late 90s. They are at the end of their useful life. They were expected to last 20 to 25 years. They did. We are at 25 years now. We started having this conversation back in 2016 at the 20-year mark. We knew this was coming. This isn't a surprise. We've been talking about it. It's been put into our CIP Outlook program, kind of saying, hey, it's coming. We got to start talking about it. We're now at that point where we need to execute. We've spent more than $40,000 since May, this past May, in repairs that continue to happen. We're degrading quickly. So what the staff has done is put together a proactive plan versus a reactive failure approach. And really what we're talking about here is eyeballing next summer, 2023, as the installation time for this project. Why? It minimizes our downtime. Most people are not playing ball in the summer. It's hot. It's too hot. So we don't have a lot of usership. So we're not going to be impacting our users. We're also going to be able to plan it so that we can have all of the right people there at all the right times so that our window of installation and our window of downtime is minimized. You heard me mention it was in summer. That crosses 2 fiscal years. The process of this fiscal ending in June, our new fiscal end starting in July, we spread the cost over those 2 fiscal years to help stabilize the budget, so it's not such an impact all at once. By doing all of this, it also minimizes or reduces to nothing our revenue impact, i.e. we will not be having to cancel tournaments, we will not have to turn folks away because of this. If we wait until there is a failure, the likelihood is we will have revenue impacts. Not only that, is that we will have a significant downtime as we try to manage through that process. So what is the proposal tonight? The proposal is a Musco lighting, LED lighting package. As I mentioned, we're using metal halide. That's why you hear the hum when you are out there if you're under any of our ball field lights. It's also why there's not that instant on-off concept. You can't turn them on and turn them off, and then it takes another 20 minutes for them to heat back up again. So the proposal on the table tonight is that Musco would use our existing poles that are out there. That is a really, really big benefit for us that we don't have to pay to replace those. Not only will they use what's existing, but they will put it under a 25-year warranty parts and labor for us. That is also a really, really significant benefit. Using LED would reduce operations cost. It just uses less power, less energy. We would move to LED technology and controllers, which again is significantly reduces our impacts and energy usage. It's dimmable and adjustable so that when we aren't necessarily playing, but we're prepping fields or we're doing cleanup, they can be dimmed so that it reduces the usage and it reduces the light pollution and all of those things we talked about in terms of dark skies. It also lends itself to reduced resident impacts, i.e. if you live near or around Golden Eagle, you know when those lights are on. There's a lot of light spillage out there because that's how they were designed 25 years ago. And again, it does afford us the instant on and off. It's no surprise that sometimes ball games go long. They think we're going to be done at 9. There's extra innings. The game is tied, whatever it is. And if the field lights go off, you hear a collective groan. If that happens, in this instance, not a big deal. We can address that. It's a small win overall, but it's a big win if you're the kid out there playing or the parent out there watching. Why Musco? You heard me say Musco does all of our park lights. There's a reason. Musco does 98% of the world's sports field lightings. I'm going to share this image, or actually 2 images with you. This is at Notre Dame Prep. You might be familiar with it over in the Scottsdale area. The upper left image is the original lighting supplier that relit their football field. You can kind of see how bright it is. You can kind of see the, I'll call it splotchy lighting. There's different shadows. You can't see the end of the track there. Within the first week of that facility being lit up, the town received, or city of Scottsdale, received numerous calls. The school received numerous calls. There was a lot of complaints. It forced the shutdown of the facility due to the spillage and due to the community impacts. And the school was forced to correct the issue and go back with and redo the fields with Musco lighting. So you can kind of see the impact there from photo 1 to photo 2. But that's why we use Musco as part of our lighting, so that we know we're getting a quality product. It always comes back to the money discussion. I get it. It's a big investment for us. So what you have here in front of you is a breakdown of a 25-year cost of ownership. So if we keep the lights we have for another 25 years, or if we move to an LED system. The left column kind of indicates our different costs. So with the existing fixtures, we're looking at $1.2 million in energy, $1.24 in maintenance, parts and labor, and roughly $183,000 in controllers and software. That's if we keep what we have. If we move to an LED system, there is an investment. It's roughly as a $1.4 million installation investment. However, it reduces our energy costs over those 25 years to $678,000 total. Maintenance, parts, and labor would be under warranty, and the controllers are included. At the end of 25 years, the total investment is $2.08 for the LED versus $2.643 with the existing. We come out ahead. It takes us a while to get there, but my concern is that I don't know when those maintenance and that 1.24 in maintenance that's coming continues to come year over year. The fact that we've spent over $40,000 in the last 4 months is really, really concerning. So the contract that's before you tonight is set to not to exceed $2 million. It is a renewable up to 4 years, so it's a total of 5 years in total for $2 million, not to exceed $2 million. This project that we've talked about tonight is broken over 2 fiscal years. It's identified for $700,000 in this year's CIP and $700,000 in next year's. The project, however, would be one project because we would start in June and finish in July, and bridge those 2 fiscal years. That's why we did it the way we would do it, or recommending that way. The total contract includes the ball field lights, as I just talked about, but it also includes the installation of lights at our Four Peaks playground, which is also another CIP project that's in our budget this year. It also would address any maintenance on lighting controls throughout our other parks and any additional operational maintenance in other parks. So while we know there's 2.4 earmarked for the project we talked about tonight, the remaining contract would be to address any operation or standard maintenance in other parks. I know that's a lot. I'm happy to answer questions or talk more about this. What can I?
Two questions. So Golden Eagle itself, what's the price tag on that?
1.4
1.4,
total.
okay. And then you mentioned that due to flooding and other issues in 2018, there was corrosion underneath some of those poles. Is that going to affect any installation on the new equipment that they're going to be putting in there?
Great question, and that is factored into that budget. We have that built in so that we can address that if we find it. In a best-case scenario, everything looks great and we come in under budget. Worst-case scenario, we have the funding there to address it if we need to, and it's just a matter of we don't know what's under there till we get there.
Thank you, Rachel, for the presentation. So basically, this is a need, not a want.
Yes, ma'am.
Because this is, our lighting system is failing. It's so old, you probably can't even get all the parts, or there's no guarantee that we're going to be able to obtain parts in the future. So basically, we're wasting money, right?
I would say yes. I would say this is definitely a need in that we knew it was coming. We've been planning for it. We've been anticipating this,
Right.
and we're starting to see all of the red flags that say, yeah, it's time.
Right. So it's already budgeted. This is something that you've been looking at for a while, and it really does, sounds like it needs to be done.
Yes.
Thank you.
Rachel, what does renewable for up to 4 additional years mean?
Most of our contracts have that language in it. It's and Aaron, feel free to jump in on this, but the idea is that we make a contract that they're usually on an annual basis, and they have an automatic renewal so that you don't see us appear every single year renewing contracts. We ask for the contract amount that we think we should need during that 5-year period. Clarify for me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's right, Ms. Goodwin. So Mayor and Council, the gist of it is we typically include the 1-year provision with automatic renewals or the option to renew. So for example, this contract is up to $2 million, but this budget is only for $1.4 million for this project. Say there's a repair that needs to happen in the future, say there's a different lighting project, the council has already done a one and done and authorized the expenditure so that we don't have to necessarily come back. Now, we have made it a policy that if there is a big ticket item, we do bring it forward for public awareness and so that the council's aware. But it prevents us from having to come forward for simple term renewals. That's all really it is.
And just so I can clarify, in case this is what, and I may not have made this clear, is that the total over those 5 years is $2 million. It's not $2 million every renewal. So just to make sure.
Council might remember that I was very skeptical when this came up last time and asked a lot of questions and tried to look at it from a lot of different perspectives to see if there was some way to avoid doing this. But I will say that Rachel can be very persuasive, and so I will support this.
I appreciate that.
Also, Rachel, do you think that having an improved lighting system is going to increase the use of the park?
I
Be
absolutely,
more inviting?
absolutely.
Okay,
I think
thank
it will
you.
absolutely go a long way to that. Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was very much for this project. Actually, I tried to talk Councilmember Magazine into it, and I hate to say it, but now I'm a little hesitant about the project. Not that I'm not for the lights and everything, but in light of the horrible report we got last council meeting related to the over $1 million estimated price tag to fix the community center, and try to stop it from being the Poseidon adventure. I'm hesitant to roll forward with this unless I have some reassurance from the guy that's in charge of the money and holds all the money to, if in the event we approve this, and like I said, I'm totally for it. I understand that you are really gripping and trying to find parts to fix the lights because they're so old, and eventually there'll become a time where there won't be lights even to be available to fix it. So, but moving forward with a vote, I would like some reassurance that if we do vote for this, which is a lot of money, that when we get the final estimate or the final price of how much it's going to cost to fix the community center, that there will be monies available to make that happen. Because if it is a choice between lighting the ball field for another 2 years or fixing the community center, which we dumped $800,000 into, and it's slowly flooding, and ruining everything that we spent the money on. I would be a yes vote if I can be assured, even though my council term is coming to an end, but I still don't want to leave it for the new council. I want to be reassured that if that price tag comes back to fix the community center, and it's going to be north of 7 figures, as Mr. Buick said, I want to know that when I'm making this vote, that I'm not going to ruin the chances of the community center being fixed properly.
Sure, I certainly understand that, and I'll ask our finance director to chime in. And I will kind of draw a little bit of a parallel here in that when we know our systems are aging, it's up to us to make sure that we're proactively addressing the issues. The community center notwithstanding, it's an aging facility, we're finding issues. I would prefer to take this one on proactively. We know there's an issue, we want to get ahead of it so that we're not surprised later. With that.
Hold on one sec.
Is there any possibility to help Councilman Spelich's thought and spread this out over more than 2 years?
You know, that's a great question. We actually kind of brainstormed what we could do to minimize that initial cost, you know, and because it is a big number and it's a big blow to our financials. And really the 2 fiscal years is probably the most we can spread it out financially speaking. Anything more than that indicates that we're going to have to mobilize multiple times. And I don't know how often you've worked with bringing out cranes and bringing out all of the technicians and the electricians and all of that. It's likely going to increase our budget on this project significantly. And that's just the cost for mobilization. We also have a number of shared conduits underground that go to all of the different ball fields. So essentially, we'd have to rip it up, repair it, rip it back up again the next summer, repair it.
What about just doing Golden Eagle now and getting that all complete and putting a watch on Four Peaks?
That would be up to you guys to direct. The cost for the Four Peaks, and I don't remember it off the top of my head, is less than $200,000. So it's not a significant number, and it is a response to a community request.
Well, before Dave comes up, can you address what Councilman said about the community center as far as things that we did actually getting ruined as opposed to, you know, what was found in the walls and that such?
And I'll speak to it as much as I am familiar. I know Justin Weldy, our Public Works Director, is kind of leading that charge. A lot of the issues that we're finding, to my understanding, are more extensive than originally anticipated. We put in a number of projects, including a new drainage system out front, some new doors, some other efforts to address the problems, anticipating, great, we were proactive, we went ahead and did these things. During that time, they definitely found that the problem was larger and more invasive than once thought. So with that in mind, and again, it's kind of learning from that process, that's why we built in some funding so that if we find that same thing, if we find that it's more extensive than we thought, we have some budget allocated so we can address it. We do have the means to anticipate that. We've done quite a bit of legwork ahead of time, i.e. we've gotten vendors out here, we've had them evaluate on site so that we feel comfortable with the number they're giving us and they feel like they're comfortable giving us that estimate. It's a two-way street. We want to make sure of that too.
Thanks, Councilmember, for bringing this question up. Yes. I'm standing off in the side, you know, trying to okay, I need to temper my comments. But I will say, as far as the capital projects fund, this project was budgeted. The funds are there to cover that. It wouldn't take our fund balance down to zero where we wouldn't be able to do something else. I can't stand up here and say that, you know, we've got $9 million extra dollars to do something at the community center. God forbid it comes back with that kind of dollar amount. If things continue the way that they're continuing now for this fiscal year, by the time this project comes around in May, June, we'll have quite a bit of, I don't want to say extra, but our fund balance in the capital funds project will be growing. The problem, if any, excuse me, you know, if we get into a recession early next year, where it's starting to affect TPT, construction, that type thing, we might have a little bit less than what we think we have at the end, you know, forecast for the end of next year. But like I said, there's still going to be the fund balance that's there now, plus some to cover costs for community center.
Yeah, just to dovetail onto that, David, I realize that you don't have the final audited report from the audit, but we had a surplus last fiscal year. It had nothing to do with the ARPA money, and that will be transferred or will be shortly into that capital fund. Do you remember what that number is?
It was right at what I had brought to council when we were doing the budget. It was between the 3 million and 3.5 million that the general fund will transfer into capital projects for this year's projects.
So the only reason I'm bringing that up is I think we're very cautious, and we have employed that firm to help us identify and help prioritize the different improvements that are going to need to be made to the building. But I feel very confident based on what he told us privately, both before the council presentation and also afterwards, that he feels that a number of the interim or short-term solutions, such as sealing the windows and some of the drainage system that we are talking about putting in the front of the building, will address most of the issues on a long term. So, but what I'm trying to get at is the bottom line is that we are, I feel, because he said if we were to just replace storefront windows and all that, you're talking about, you know, he said a 7-digit number, and that's what you're recalling, correct? Mm-hmm. So, but he had told us he didn't think it was going to get to that extreme. So, and he's going to be coming back to you with a presentation that identifies and helps prioritize what should be done based on both cost and cost benefit.
And don't get, if I'm just going to add to that, you know, I believe that we'd be able to pay for a low 7-figure renovation or repairs to the community center out of the capital fund itself. If it's more than that, we have other funds that we'd be able to tap into to move to the capital projects if needed, be it the facilities reserve, probably general fund, that type of thing. So there are more options. We're not an if, and, or I think we could do both of these without a problem.
Before I ask my question, does anybody have anything for Mr. Pock? No? Okay.
Be back.
Thank you.
So I have 2 comments and a question, and I'm saying that out loud so that I don't forget to go through it all. The touch screen that I was the quality control person for Musco Lighting a couple of weeks ago. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Oh my gosh. So I have to say I'm a little disappointed in these photos because they are not from the exact same angle. Where the touch screen was from about the 50-yard line. And if you look at the top left, you kind of see the little Sate symbol has darkness to it. You honestly could not make out the people standing at the 50-yard line right there on that Saint symbol. Now, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, it's bright, and you could totally see 100% at the 50-yard line. So I'm a little disappointed in the photograph angle here. I feel like we're missing something. The other thing that I want to point out with the other photo is being directly as somebody seated in the stands looking out, you could 100% make out how annoyed I would be if I was that house at Four Peaks or at Golden Eagle with the before lights. Once you see those after lights and see how little spillage, thank you, how little spillage is around it, it is so impressive. And I'm sure that the Four Peaks people they're just going to be thrilled because I know they've complained. The second comment I want to make is I realize that CSAC is not in charge of money, but the Community Services Advisory Commission did vote on it and recommend the project. Then the question I have is actually going to be more of a Justin thing. And it's probably more of a, Justin, can you come and talk about the flooding in Golden Eagle Park and all of the work you guys have done to help prevent this kind of thing from happening again? I think it's very important to talk about that for the thousands of fans that you know are watching us from home, so that they know we're not putting in good money and then there may be a reflood or, you know, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I think Justin can probably speak to a number of efforts as well as our park superintendent, Kevin Snipes. They both put extensive work into that project. Welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'll start this off. Obviously, immediately after the storm event, action was taken by the Parks Department and Public Works to clear the drainage channels was on our side, and to immediately begin remediation or removal of the sediment on the fields was on the park side, Kevin's side. Since that time, after every storm event, the Public Works Department, with support of 2 local contractors, has gone in and removed the sediment that has accumulated in the drainage channels in the impoundment area around the outside of the ballparks. That project that the mayor and council had approved some years ago to make the final improvements to that is now approaching the 90% mark. Soon they will be 100%, and probably in the early next calendar year, staff will be up here asking the mayor and council to approve a contract for the necessary work to complete that project. With that said, again, after every storm event, Public Works and contractors and Parks goes in and cleans out material, and will continue to do so.
But not from the ball fields.
Not from the ball field. We just work on the drainage channels, and then Kevin will provide the part
And you've
that
expanded the drainage channels.
we have.
Okay.
We have been, did you want me to discuss that?
Well, I mean, we've taken some preventative measures, short-term ones.
In fact, we have taken extensive preventative measures. I'm not going to get into a lot of background here because it'll make more than one of you sleepy. Originally, when the drainage channels in there were designed, they were designed for very short and light rain events. And as a result of that, it didn't take them very long to become built up with sediment after the storm, which created the most damage in recent histories. We went in and expanded not only the width, but the depth of the 3 primary drainage channels that go between the parks and around the park and lead to Golden Eagle Dam. The end result of that is increased capacity for stormwater, not only as it rolls by and around the ball fields, but also the throughput through the dam has been substantially increased as a result of some improvements we've made there as well. You're welcome.
Mayor, Council. The Parks Department has done a lot as well to the ball fields, as you know, with the $600,000 that was approved by you guys to make the improvements. We certainly have done that. Those improvements include changing slopes and angles of the entire fields to where we can get the water off the fields quicker. So as we get those floodwaters coming through, even if they do come outside the banks, we help guide that water back to where that they should be. We've had some issues where we have flooded out onto the fields over the last couple years. I think Justin and I both have learned a lot from watching those events and how they roll. Some of our latest things that we've done is going much deeper, and with Justin's help, that's made a huge difference because it helps catch all that sediment before it actually gets to the dam face where we're clogging up and then increasing the event like we saw in 2018. So I'm very pleased with where we're at now. We're constantly getting sediment down. That's that's coming down from the top of the mountain. So I don't think we have control over stopping that, but we're certainly being proactive in, once the events occur, working together to make sure that we get in there and get that stuff cleaned out before the next event comes in, and have bought us a lot of time and a lot of ability to handle heavy rain flows.
Did we have any speaker cards on this?
No, Mayor, we don't.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
One more question. One last question. Now, I know Musco did lighting for us out at Desert Vista Park.
They did.
Are they, so I'm assuming you did your homework and they're the best value out there for these lights?
No doubt about it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Rachel, as I discussed with you in the past, it was always my pet peeve to go by these parks and see them lit and no one playing. And I had suggested to you, I don't know how many meetings ago, that I think that the people that book these things and don't even give you the courtesy of notifying you that they're not going to show up and everything, I had suggested that we had put something into the fee structure or something that would let them know that there's going to be a price for us leaving these lights on and them not showing up and everything. I will vote in the affirmative for the project, but I hope that even though there's going to be a light savings and everything, as far as the electricity and everything, that we insist on, and this, by the way, includes Little League and everybody else, so Little League people, send me your emails. I just think that there should be a serious focus on the energy consumption that we use, and just not showing up or giving the courtesy of that. I would hope that with this new system and the ability to, I would hope somebody, either you or Kevin, have an app that will be able to shut the lights off from your house when somebody calls and a citizen tells you that we're lighting up the entire neighborhood and absolutely no one is standing on the field. That's all.
We do. Thank you. And I do agree. The principle there is that if you've booked the fields and aren't going to use them, it's a common courtesy to let us know.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, hi, Mike, thanks.
Yeah, just real quick, Rachel, maybe you can probably answer this, but if someone doesn't show up, I mean, at a reasonable time of the evening, I mean, don't we have a park attendant on site who can just turn the lights off? I mean, I guess I don't understand how that happens. I mean, I just thought there was always someone on staff, when something's scheduled.
Sure. The quick answer to that is yes. We do generally have a park attendant on in the evenings. But like many of us, they can't be all places at once. So there may be occasions where they're planning their route to end at the ball fields at the end of the program so that they can do cleanup and pull trash. And it's not until they get there at the end of the night that they realize, oh, nobody has been here. So generally speaking, we do ask our users to give us a heads up if something changes. We know occasions like last night with the high winds and things like that come up. We understand that and we want to work with them about that. Soccer had the fields last night. It wasn't a great night to be playing soccer. So yes, we do have that. But as a result of that conversation, Councilman, we have instituted a very small but effective light fee to our partner groups to help offset that and to provide a little bit of accountability to them to help make sure that if they're not going to be there, if their reservation times change, something happens, they have some accountability to let us know. So, Councilman Charno, to your answer, yes, we do have that staff, but the new technology does allow us to get a heads up if we get a phone call, if one of our staff gets a call from soccer or Little League or any user that says, hey, we're not going to be there tonight. It doesn't then require staff to get a hold of the person on staff, get them over to the site. We can just turn them off via the app and log in, and it's quick and easy. So it does help us be more efficient in that capacity.
All right, I appreciate that, Rachel. I just want to add quickly, in general, Golden Eagle Park has always been kind of the crown jewel of our, at least, athletic facilities in Fountain Hills, and I appreciate the out-of-town usage in tournaments and that kind of thing. But again, Councilman Spellage mentioned Little League, but there are a lot of kids and seniors that still use that park that live in our town. So I think it deserves the attention, that it needs to keep the standards up and keep everyone playing out there and safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the first thing I thought of when you showed the 25 years out, staying what we have is like, it's not going to get there. So, it's kind of a moot thing. Can I get a motion, please?
Move to approve contract 2023-34 with Musco Sports Lighting LLC.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rachel. Our next item is Justin. Thank you. Flood Control District.
Yes, Mayor and Council, Justin will be giving this presentation, but want to let you know that the next three items are related to one another. So he'll be giving the staff report on all three.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, council members, as with most of the projects that we approach, some of them are eyewitness accounts by staff, others are from residents or motorists that identify. We work to identify the best possible funding solution or scenario through either one or multiple years. I've had the privilege since I've been here to look over several documents and be involved in several projects. In doing so, have discovered an incredible amount of time and effort by not only the town staff, but management and the council has resulted in some pretty incredible grant funding with the match or the town's portion being relatively low. This is an excellent example. With direction from the mayor and council and the town manager, the next two IGAs that we're going to discuss and the design contract to accomplish that are amazing. You'll note, or maybe you'll recall, that we had approached the mayor and council earlier this year and asked for permission to apply for these small assistance grants. One of the projects is off of Grande. It's a channel that runs from Grande to Rosarita. There are two homes immediately on Grande that haven't been affected, one more so than the other. The lower two homes on the portion or on the section of the drainage channel, not as much, but to an extent, yes. They've lost items that they have planted or items that they've left in their driveways due to overtopping and just a simple flow. We're delighted tonight to make the mayor and council aware that we have been approved for that contract to move forward with the design and the eventual construction. It's a pretty big number in regards to grant funding. There's a couple of minor corrections that I would like to make that I discovered I made. The preliminary estimated cost, as you can see in the staff report, is approximately $290,000. The grant funding for this is $217,500, with the town's match being $72,500, which is 25%. You'll note that on the very bottom, I twisted those two numbers, and it shows the town's portion being $217,000 and the flood control districts being a little bit less than that. I would like to make sure you understand that I made that mistake. The town's portion is $72,500, and the flood control district will be contributing $217 plus for this project. Relatively uncomplicated. We've discussed a little bit of it in the past, but I will certainly answer any additional questions that I'm able to tonight.
Councilman Spelch?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Justin, if this gets approved tonight, which I don't see it to be a problem considering the homeowner came here and showed us all the pictures of the damage, what would be the start time for the project and what would be the completion time?
Madam Mayor, council member, the first portion is if they are approved tonight, and also the design contract, we will set up a meeting to meet with that designer, that engineer, before the end of this month, depending on available times. Issue a notice to proceed during that meeting and provide a purchase order. Given the limited challenges we'll be facing for the Grande one, I would suspect by probably February or March of next year, depending on how long it takes the flood control district to review the plans as they're prepared, that we'll be ready to go to construction at that time.
Did we have any speaker cards on this item?
We do not have any, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further questions? Can I get a motion, please?
Move to adopt Resolution 2022-40 and authorize the capital project D6062.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Justin.
You're
Going to the
welcome.
next one.
Madam Mayor, council members, the next one is equally impressive. This particular one is down on Deuce Court. That's on North Saguaro, just before Fountain Hills Boulevard. This one is an error that we are going to help to correct and do the right thing. A brief history on this. When that subdivision was built and the improvements were installed, the developer was to install a catch basin. This is a device that catches water that flows in from the street and diverts that water into a pipe. That pipe goes downstream, enters another drainage structure until it eventually reaches a wash. The improvement plans that the town has for that subdivision shows that said drainage pipe is 18 inches in diameter, and that said catch basin is located at this exact location. Both of those are inaccurate. The catch basin is off by about 50 feet, and the pipe is off by 16 inches. So it's a 4-inch pipe in a catch basin that's 50 feet away. We are in fact going to correct that and install the correct size catch basin and pipe in the drainage easement that is noted on the improvement plans, relieving the issues from the adjacent property owners. And in this case, it's a considerable amount of water that these individuals have endured for some time, because the town's ability to act on this was limited due to the fact that these drainage improvements were on private property and the amount of issues related to it were unknown because of the HOA's responsibilities. This is a really good opportunity for the town to right a wrong and allow for grant funding to fund the majority of that improvement. With that said, I'll answer any additional questions you may have on this one.
Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards.
Thank you. Peggy?
I'll make a motion.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Move to adopt Resolution 2022-41 and authorize capital project D6063.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. You're taking the next one too, right?
Madam Mayor, council members, and lastly, this is the contract that we're asking you to consider and approve for the design of these two projects. The engineer, the principal engineer from this firm, has a considerable amount of years working for much, much larger firms on this type of improvement. Staff had engaged this engineer in the past for a couple of other projects to help us arrive at some budgetary numbers for capital projects as part of the project process. Those projects were not selected. We were, however, impressed by his knowledge in the engineering field and also his reasonable prices. In this particular case, this is yet another good deal for the town of Fountain Hills. The county is going to grant funding to help us pay for the design as well. And on this one, and I didn't memorize these numbers because I hadn't looked at it in a while, it looks like the project for design is about $59,000. I'm missing a table on this one here. There it is. Turned one page too many. So for Deuce Court, it's $21,000. For Grande Boulevard, $37,000, for a total of $59,205. And I'm missing a sheet here that breaks down the flood control district's contribution.
Well, it says here the fiscal impact is 59,205, but then above, it sounds like our share is 14,801, so I'm not
There it is.
sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, why my sheet it didn't print that, again, I would say that this is a benefit to the town and the residents as a whole for the cost savings from utilizing the grants. With that, if there are any questions related to this one, I will certainly do my best to answer them.
Thank you. Any cards?
Thank you, Mayor. No, we do not have any speaker cards.
Great.
Move to approve professional services agreement 2021-039 with NFRA Inc. for design of drainage improvements associated with the two capital projects, D6062 and D6063 for Grande Boulevard, Rosita Drive, and Deuce Court in the amount of $59,205. That's not right.
It's
Should be 14,801.
80125.
In the correct amount, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll second that
that
for
okay?
the correct amount.
for the correct amount.
Aaron?
Yeah, I think for the correct amount's good.
Yeah.
We may just want to approve it for the full amount so that we can operate under the contract and have the entire thing approved. So I think it's fine as stated, but,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
understood.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
On whatever?
On whatever it was we just did.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Grady, we have our final action item here.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, the item before you is a follow-up to the August 23rd work session. You'll recall that McGrath Consulting gave a great report on the evaluation of our emergency medical and fire services here in town. And as part of that, there were findings and recommendations in that, but it was due to the late hour in the evening, we did not have an opportunity really for the council, other than the questions that they asked along the way, to really have a discussion about what came out of the report and a little bit more detailed discussion. So before you tonight, our finance director, or I should say our chief financial officer, David Pock, is going to give you a brief presentation that includes that information and then also some additional items for your consideration tonight. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Pock.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Council. I told you I'd be back. All right, so as Grady mentioned, we did do the final report from the McGrath consulting firm on our fire services at the August 22nd meeting. This presentation is basically just an overview, summary, bullet point type things from that report, just to refresh your memory. So some of the key takeaways from that report, as far as the rural metro contract, they are meeting all of their contractual agreements as far as response times go. We have a very low fire dollar loss rate. Compliance with the NFPA standards for staffing, deployment, and call processing dispatch are not required under the contract. Professional leadership and quality of services, quality service is being provided to the town through the contract. Fountain Hills and Carefree are the only two municipal master contracts remaining in Arizona. He had a table of about, I'd say, 15 to 16 different municipalities that have moved away from contracting services, either through a master contract or a subscription service. That could be a sign of a little bit of risk. So primary reason for movement away was the desire for local control. And then also, since rural metro is not involved in the automatic aid system, that's also another reason that a move away from that contract might be beneficial. As far as the options provided by the consultant, you can see that there's 7 there. The ones above the red line are the ones that staff believes are realistic as far as being obtainable. So we have the status quo, we have bringing it in-house, and then bringing it in-house with enough staff and enough training to become part of the automatic aid system. As far as their recommendations, I'm not going to go through and read all these. You've seen them all before, but I'll try to summarize them as best I can. If we did decide to stay with Rural Metro in that contract, they recommended that we start putting together a plan just in case Rural Metro decided to discontinue it. That was the first point. The second point is basically if we do decide to bring it in-house, it was the recommendation that we go start on the path to becoming eligible for the automatic aid system. Third point is the additional staff, that if we do bring it in-house, it would require an additional HR person and some IT support. And finally, that all fire personnel, if we did bring it in-house, would be eligible for the PSPRS program. So based on that, the two reasonable options that staff believes, obviously the status quo. Our current contract is effective through the end of fiscal year 24, so June 30th, 2024. There is another 2-year renewal available on our current contract that would extend it out to fiscal year 26. If that's council's desire, then motion A that you see in your packet and the suggested motion would be the one you'd want to choose. The other option is bringing the fire department fully in-house with its own fire personnel. That would have staff come back with a recommendation as far as starting to develop a transition plan, and which would include notice to Rural Metro to terminate the contract at some point. If that's council's choice, then motion B. Now, as far as your council package, you received an Excel worksheet that actually was in more detail. I just took the summary here and gave you the totals for each of those fiscal years as a comparison between these two options. On top, the contract with Rural Metro, you can see the first 3 years are grayed out. That's based on the 3% increase that's on our current contract. That green portion from fiscal year 27 going forward has an actual contract inflator on this one of 5%, assuming that they would increase their annual increase in their contract. The annual FH Fountain Hills inflator is all the other costs that are involved, be it vehicle maintenance, equipment, things that the town supplies. That's all figured at a 3% increase. If that's brought in-house based on the consultant's numbers, for option 1, those are the numbers that you see there. They used, for all their personnel costs and training and that sort of thing, they used a 5% inflator in the report. And then, of course, we still have the Fountain Hills expenses as well. And then that bottom line is basically just a difference between those two scenarios. I do have the Excel worksheet with me on the computer, so if people wanted to see all those expenses, we can expand those if needed.
Mayor, I just want to, if you can go back to that last slide. Again, I know Mr. Pock has already stated this, but I want to just remind you, if you looked at on your screen in front of you, the green is really an unknown at this point. We really don't know what Rural Metro will charge, and based on the inflationary pressures we've been seeing over the past year, we believe that after fiscal year 26, if we were to continue with them, they'd probably have a reset. They would probably increase their rates because of the 3% multiplier that we have had, or the escalator probably hasn't been enough And so they would likely either do one of two things. They'd probably increase it to a number that they thought they could kind of recover right away what they should have been charging us plus an escalator. Or they will come a little bit more reasonable and then have a more, higher escalator going forward. So I just want to let you know that those are things that we don't know at this point. We don't know the future and what holds for us, but certainly as we're all seeing with ourselves and businesses and everything we paid today, we definitely know that inflationary pressures are going to be with us even as things start to normalize a little bit.
Mayor. I just want to make sure I understand this. Rural Metro FY24, 4.5 million. In-house 5.6 million, but I think you're saying that the 4.5 million isn't fixed. Is that correct?
Sorry.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
That's
So
a difference.
The 4.5 million that's included there is fixed based on the current contract. It will increase 3% over what it is this year. It will be that plus our town costs that we have for vehicle maintenance, equipment, supplies, that sort of thing, will be 4.5 million.
So that's a difference of 1.1 million.
Correct.
In fiscal ¡24.
Correct.
In our favor.
If we stayed with rural metro, it would be $1.1 million less than if we brought
That's what I'm
fire
saying.
department.
Yes.
Right.
But
There
what,
are-
I'm sorry, I was just gonna jump in. What you're not really seeing is that there's one-time costs associated with, if we were to bring it in-house, there would be one-time costs. That's why that first year is about $600,000 more versus 25 if it's in-house. Does that make sense? So there, even though we have the fire stations and we have all the, the apparatus and all that, there would be training costs and additional personnel that would be driving that cost, correct, Mr. Pock?
Correct.
Math isn't my forte, but if I take 4,534,000 versus 5,658,000, I see a difference of 1.1 million. Is that not correct?
Nope, that's absolutely correct
Okay, so if we stay with rural, we save 1.1 million.
for 1 year.
The next year, I didn't write it down, well, it's a lot less. In FY26, I think we saved like 326,000. That sound about right?
So you're looking at the Excel sheet that I sent out with the packet, correct?
Yeah.
So the one that's on your screen, I did make an adjustment compared to what you have in your packet.
Okay.
That fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26, I had increasing at the 5%, but it's actually fixed. We have a 3% increase per year for our rural metro contract through fiscal year 26. So that's the only difference that you'll see between the packet and this number.
Okay, so.
You're absolutely right.
All right, if I understand it, and I may not, we would save considerable amount by staying with rural metro through FY25, and then we'd have the time we need to bring it in-house by FY26. Does that make sense?
We're always going to have the startup.
Yeah. So there's quite a few costs involved with like getting involved with the dispatch center and getting that equipment installed on all the vehicles and that sort of thing. It also has 6 additional firefighters that are brought in under that option just to cover anybody that's out on paid sick leave or vacation or something like that. So you will always have those costs in addition to the contract.
The big takeaway here is, and I hate to use this excuse, or not excuse, but an example, but it kind of hits home. Right now, under rural metro, we don't have mutual aid, and cities are unwilling to grant mutual aid. Mutual aid is basically if we need assistance from Scottsdale Fire to assist, they will not do so because we're having rural metro as our provider. If we have our own fire department and our own personnel, they will do that. The other thing is if we have our own in-house personnel and we're able to get our training up to the level that is required for automatic aid, then we qualify for automatic aid. So it's like the difference, and I hate to use this as as an example, but it's like the difference of being like a Slovenia, that you're providing your own military defense, but then you're able to join NATO and you have the additional resources at your disposal if you have a need for it. I'm sorry for that, it's a really good way to explain it.
I think it boils down to how much is mutual aid worth, doesn't it? Because if in the first year you can save over $1 million, is that the cost of not having mutual aid?
It's one of those things. It's a service level question, and that's why it's before you tonight for you to discuss it.
That's what I'm saying. You have to decide how much mutual aid is worth.
Can I? Oh. Yes, go ahead.
I agree with you, Alan, and I find it very difficult to believe that another town wouldn't come to our aid if we had an issue. So the mutual aid, I think, is overrated. I don't want to use that word, but there's no other word I can think of at this point. The town's been around a long time. If Scottsdale had a problem, I think we would go help them. If the Indian Reservation had a problem, I know we would go and help them if we had to. So I agree with you. How much is it really worth? We don't have it now.
I think one of the big things we need to remember, and unfortunately I didn't write the difference down in my notes, but we're discussing mutual aid. It is different from automatic aid. I think we do mutual aid, that's just kind of a thing. No, we don't either with the mutual aid either, but we don't qualify for automatic aid. Rural Metro, as a general rule, doesn't, because they don't meet the training standards and the model does not meet the response time standards.
The mutual aid, we did have that until recently when Scottsdale cut that off from rural Metro because they didn't have the same level of training and staffing and such like that. So right now we have no mutual aid from Scottsdale or automatic aid. The other thing about automatic aid is it's shared communications, it's joint equipment purchasing, it's operations and staffing of special response teams like hazardous materials, trench rescues, structural collapses. There's certain things that maybe we wouldn't always have the equipment for, and that's where mutual aid comes in. We're looking at the safety of our residents, but also of the firefighters themselves. I'm sorry, I know I should wait for everybody else, but I do have a question about these numbers. So you said that the first two were off because we knew that was only the 3%. Correct. But this rest of that chart is still more than what I had for 26, 27, and 28. It was 326,000 more in 26, 338,000 more in 27. So it had gone down quite a bit. So I'm not totally sure about why that is. And I also don't know if we're adding in the IT person, which I don't think we need, the training person, which I don't think we need. So I think there's other variables in here which come under the umbrella of it all being under our control, if this is the way we go. So I just was a little unsure about those numbers.
Okay. So when you're saying that you came up with a difference, was that strictly on the rural metro contract line, or is that on our town expenses?
Well, this was from the, this is yours, I believe. Correct. But it's not, it's obviously changed the 24, 25, because we know that that's the 3%.
And 26.
And, yeah, which anyway, I know I thought it ran out in 25, but no, that's okay, 26.
It's actually technically June of
26. You get 2, and you said that 3% was guaranteed through that, even though it had to be renewed. Right. But again, yeah, maybe this was something that was more of a preliminary, because on 27, FY 27, it says 338, 389, and here it's, well, where'd it go? It's not on this one.
Are you looking at the in-house or the rural metro?
The difference between. So the
320.
difference between in FY '27, the difference between here is 338, 389.
Right.
Right, so what are the inflators showing on the one that you have?
This is the
highlighted
5, but
boxes.
it's after the 3 years. So it's the 5 and the 3.
Okay, so what I did, the only difference that I made between what you have in here is I just use the 1.3% to increase through fiscal year '26, and then taking that and increasing it by the 5% going forward. So none of the numbers underneath or the contract numbers changed, just the formula for that row 3.
But okay, so the one that you had up though before that was smaller, that had the difference between rural metro and us. So go to 27, you've got 521, I can't read it too good.
521.
Yeah, and on this, it's 338, 389. So this was from,
So that's gonna be the difference between, because over on this one is the new, with the fixed cost, 4,000,008.
no,
So that's just this line here, the total, 4.8 million for fiscal year '26,
yeah. Well, it's just, it's
and the 5,044,000.
4. Yeah, I don't know.
And again, what we were stating earlier is we just don't know after, starting in fiscal year '27, if we were to remain with the status quo, we just don't know what rural metro would charge us at that point.
True.
Thought that one of the things is we
Councilwoman?
don't even know if they're going to renew the contract.
They haven't, yeah, you never know.
And that's why, one of the reasons why we were looking at this
It's
is,
a possibility. If they pull out, we don't have really any other
right,
privatized.
because the only other town that is using rural metro along with, and we are, is Carefree, right?
And they're looking to change.
Right. I don't know if they're going to.
They're in the same process.
They're reviewing it. Do they give us they give, either side gives a 1-year notice? Is that what it is?
If I remember correctly, we can give them 1 year notice, but they have to give us 2 years notice. And I did make a note that McGrath is actually suggesting we come up with a plan now, because 2 years notice is a lot, but knowing how much money needs to be invested and knowing how much stuff you gotta buy and prepare for and hire, we're gonna need every day of those 2 years when you get notice.
Thank you. Councilman?
If the numbers I have in front of me are accurate, and I have no clue at this point, but,
And it's all assumptions, it's all,
okay,
I
well,
mean, it's guesses on our
in
part.
in
too,
FY
so.
'24, we would save $1.1 million if we stayed with rural metro. That's serious money. It would seem to me, and council members can totally disagree because I'm not sure of what I'm saying, but if we stayed with rural metro for FY '24, we can let the next council decide about the following year where the savings is only $326,000.
But it won't be just
I
300,000.
can't, I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
It won't be just 300,000. That 1 million will just move 1 year later. Because there's initial costs and the additional personnel, additional equipment, and for startup costs.
You talk, okay, if we bring it in-house, right.
Right. But even if you bring it in-house in fiscal year '24, it'd still be, the first year will be $1.1 million cost. Or
Oh, okay,
difference.
all right, okay. Yeah, right, okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think what we all need to really focus on is rural metro is a small subsidiary of a very large corporation. And this corporation's balance sheet shows that they make money in everything they do other than fire service. Okay? Now, the only person that I know that is an expert at wasting money is the federal government. They don't do anything to stop it. So I think this corporation, now that it only has 2 contracts left, I think there's going to be a distinct possibility that they're going to wake up and say, we're no longer going to be in the business of losing money. And I think we really need a backup plan, and this is the backup plan. The only question, that was a rambling statement. The only question that I have for you is, I remember the mayor or somebody, when I balked at the $1.1 million and the McGrath representative was here, I remember that I was said that the 1.1 million wouldn't be 1.1 million, it'd be closer to 700,000 because we're not taking into consideration something. So what has changed from, I felt good about 700,000, where did the extra money come?
I think part of that was because the money that we were already spending here, we thought we were looking just at the contract amount and not the 250,000 extra and then the other extra, which I forgot what that goes for, but it's all the equipment, and that's the stuff that we're already paying for. But what I had done, that made it look more like 800 was that I went out over different years, because they only had 1 year. They had the first year, which is rural metro, absolutely the lowest, 3% from the lowest. And now I get why this didn't work out. And then, and it was the most for us. So they had this $1 million thing, but then when you brought it out over the years, with rural metro getting higher and us getting lower, that was a more of a realistic picture. And this is a realistic picture as, you know, again, there were some of these variables that I think once we have it here, we have the control over. Do we need a trainer? Maybe not, probably not. Do we need an extra IT? Maybe not. How much help as far as getting to the auto aid? How much time do we have? I think there are some variables here that, well, if we go through the transition, if we go through trying to get this plan in place, that we will have our more definite feeling for what we'd actually need and what it would look like going forward.
So my question is then, if this is approved this evening, what would be the time that this would all kick in? When does Chief?
So if this is the case tonight, that's why we brought this to you, at least for discussion. And if you were to say you preferred this particular service model, which is to bring it in-house, we would bring back an action item for you next month, and you would act on that, and we would give proper notice to Rural Metro, and what we were saying, our implementation date would be January of 2024. We would have to have a transition plan that helps identify all the moving parts and all the things we need to do in time prior to us switching over.
So I guess my question is that a realistic time frame? Because I think what we need to take into consideration is the fire department that we currently have and the staff that we currently have, and Chief Ott can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that we have many guys that have 30-plus years on the job. And I don't see guys that have 30-plus year on the job. Fighting fires is a young man, young woman's game. Definitely not for people who are at the over the hump stage of their life. I think that we're going to have to replace quite a few people, because I see that they're not going to transition over with 30-plus years on the job. They're not going to transfer over to a new department and everything. So is that a realistic time frame? Because I think when you're replacing that much staff, I don't know if you can get that done in that short a time.
That's what the transition plan is for. And so again, we've seen some of these other jurisdictions do these. If we were starting up from scratch and we had to have new equipment, new stations, all that, it takes much longer. We believe we may want to have like the chief on board sooner than the actual cutoff point, so we can get like the hiring started and move all those things along. Also, we're not going to necessarily hire everybody. We're going to offer and go through a whole interview process and determine, you know, if there's people that have an interest in this and if it's going to be in our best interest. So we're not going to just necessarily give 100% of these jobs to these people. And to your point, yeah, it takes a while to go through like a recruitment process. So you're absolutely right, but that needs to be built in to that time period before we make that switch over, and that's what a transition plan. I would anticipate we need to have that transition plan in place by late spring. that we have to have, and it's giving us guidance and direction on when we do what, when.
Mayor? Is the proposal that we bring it in-house for FY '24? Is that what we're talking about?
We're talking about January of '24, so it'd be a partial year, partial fiscal year.
Well, I guess I'm missing something, because the cost for FY '24, according to this, is 5.6 million, as opposed to rural, which is 4.5 million. So what am I missing? Is that not correct?
It's absolutely correct. It's one-time costs.
Then
The
why?
one-time costs are more right now, but we also would, if we want to have the mutual aid, we right now, we do have 4, we have 8 per, 4 in each station, and we'd have to have 5, we'd probably have to hire, we would need to have backfill, so we'd have to hire some more people than we have right now.
The report we got said that we are getting a really good deal, that Rural Metro is fulfilling all of their requirements, and they're giving us excellent service. I don't know why, and we haven't, how long have we had a fire service? 40 years, 30 years, whatever, without mutual aid?
We had mutual aid until about a year ago, or less than a year ago. We had, Rural Metro was in mutual aid with Scottsdale until very recently.
Okay, so they wouldn't be if we stayed with Rural Metro.
Right.
But we would save $1.1 million.
It's not really saving, it's just that we're not spending it. Mike, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, we can juggle the numbers all we want. I mean, the bottom line is, yes, it's going to cost more if we bring it in-house, but I think, we have enjoyed excellent fire and emergency medical service over the years because of our personnel and the previous fire chiefs and the one we currently have. And so I think Councilman Spellers does bring up a good point in terms of a larger corporation, holding company, et cetera, et cetera. It's a philosophical thing in terms of how we want to provide this service to our citizens. And I think, all the other jurisdictions went the route that they did because of very specific reasons. And I think it behooves us to be proactive on this now and move on this, because like Dave said, I mean, it could change in a year or two, or else we're given notice and, we're not quite as ready as maybe we should be. But I think if we kind of pull the trigger on this now and get ready, the timing will be good, and we can do it in a more orderly fashion and control our fate in terms of our fire service and the excellent service that we have provided, over the decades. I think we want to continue that, and I think going this route will just enhance our ability to do that.
Mayor, I too want to do it in an orderly fashion. And I understand that we and, what's the other, Carefree, that's it, are the only two. But they have to give us how much notice?
The company has to give us 2 years, but in our contract, it says we have to give a minimum of 1 year notice.
Okay, well, 2 years should be plenty of time to plan to bring it in-house. It's probably double what you need. So I don't know what the rush is. I just don't get it.
I think part of it that we talked about when we had the report was that communities want control over their fire protection services. The reason that our chief can't be here giving us advice is because he doesn't technically answer to us. Our town manager and our policies they only have to be considered by Rural Metro. They are not what forms the policy or any of that. I mean, he cannot speak to us. Our town Firemen and women can't come and give us the kind of information that we need because they work for rural Metro. They don't work for us. Part of the report, some of the stuff that was missing was due to the fact that it's a private corporation and they don't have to tell us those things. We are a government entity, we are transparent, and so some of these comparisons are flawed because we didn't get all the information. And again, this is nothing about our guys and gals who are working here for us, and none of this is meant to be personal. It's a way of becoming part of the automatic aid with every other city and town in our region. Definitely want to have mutual aid, which we don't have. Its stability of services, its cost of services will be under our control. It's having a chief and a town manager that works in conjunction with the council together. And so I don't think it's only a matter of dollars and cents. And I still believe that once we have this sort of control, that we will have more control over the dollars and cents.
Mayor?
Great, Steve.
We'll let the
Okay,
Well,
council members speak.
I hear you, and I hear about this control and so on. I'd like to hear what problems we've had. If we've had a lot of problems, that changes the equation. But what kind of problems have we had in dealing with rural Metro where supposedly they're not responsive, they're not giving us this, they're not giving us that? I'm not aware of any of that.
Just a couple things. I want to dovetail on what Councilmember Spellich said earlier about the company and being one of only 2 of the master contracts that are left. Rural Metro, the history since for like the last 15 or more years has actually gone through a number of reorganization filings, bankruptcy filings. I don't know if you understand that the company that owns it now is KKR. KKR is Kohlberg, Kravitz, and you probably remember, yes, and Roberts, and you probably recall, like, I think it was RJ Nabisco and some of these other, Beatrice Foods and all these other big conglomerates where they bought the companies and then they broke them up into smaller pieces and sold them. Not as bad as T. Boone Pickens. But the point is, we really don't know what the future lies with this. And they're going to probably try to find and get best value and try to sell this off, or parts of the company off to different investors, or go public with an IPO. So I guess my concern is, yes, they have to give us 2 years notice, but how many times do we hear about, especially in retail, that they just end up letting their employees know that they're closing the store or whatever? I mean, even though we're a big client, in the scheme of things, I don't think they would necessarily give us 2 years if there's a financial issue with the company. So the point is, this is kind of like, if the council wants to go in this direction, and by the way, I've been very pleased with Rural Metro. There was a point that they did a couple personnel changes that I didn't like, and I had no control over it. And it had to do with our chief. And one of his former bosses basically had some sort of a disciplinary matter that he did to our chief. I didn't agree with it. I brought it up to him, and it didn't matter because our contract said they shall handle all the personnel side of this. And so, so that's kind of the, control. The only control I have is when it's time to hire either a new chief or deputy chief, they give me 3 candidates and I get to interview the 3 and then make a choice. It works. It's been working very fine for all these years. But again, being the last of the 2 and the biggest of the 2 really concerns me, to have a master contract and we're the last of the 2. And the rest of the company that's in the fire business, that's doing municipal fire, they're in the subscription business. And a lot of those subscribers, a lot of those cities that were doing that, have now gone and contracted either with other cities or they brought it in-house.
2 things. First one, McGrath told us when they were here that the Phoenix area automatic aid is the gold standard. So knowing that we can eventually, maybe not year 1, but eventually get to that point, that's impactful. my question, I feel like January 24 seems a little anxious over, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Have we talked to other cities and towns that have actually pulled this off? Is it something we can make happen that quickly, or should we lean more towards the fiscal 24 as opposed to the January 24 date?
Well, it would actually be fiscal 25. So it'd be, right, it'd be 24, 25. So you're saying July of 24 versus January?
I guess my question is, have we talked to somebody else that's done it? Have you talked to the town manager or the city manager that has made this happen, and what they went through and how long it took them? Is there a Bible already out there and we can just use their cheat sheet to help make it happen quicker and smoother? Or do we need to be a little bit more realistic and pad in some extra time?
Well, I have had some discussions with my peers. Scottsdale was, it took longer, but it was also multiple fire stations, multiple people, a lot of complexities with Scottsdale. There really hasn't been, other than the Daisy Mountain, which has just taken over recently in Cave Creek, there hasn't been one of our size where, and I do believe that a year, if you prefer 18 months, I think we can make that work, and I think that would be fine. I mean, give us a little bit more breathing room for sure.
When is the contract due up for renegotiation?
It ends in June of 26.
I think a 5% multiplier is not a realistic figure. I don't see them. That's not even going to be close. It's going to be it's going to be what MCSO did to us 2 years ago when they whacked us with the 14%, the resort fee. So I'll go back, I mean, I can understand Councilmember Magazine's opposition. I don't think you'll find a cheaper guy up here than me when it comes to spending town money. I mean, I'm basically opposed to everything that costs money, but I'm a realist, and I just can't believe a major corporation is going to hang in there and keep a part of their business model a loser, and that's what, no offense to Chief Ott, I'm not calling you a loser. I'm just saying rural metro is a loser. Regardless, I don't think that the quality of service is really at question. I agree with everybody. I think the service we get for rural metro is top notch. I mean, obviously you can tell by your insurance premiums for your home that they respond quickly. We don't have a real huge loss, damage loss per home that catches on fire. I think overall, but we have to look at this from an aspect of, I just don't think that this company is going to be in business anymore. And to save a little bit of money now and extend this, I guess it's kind of like the bad girlfriend. You want to be the one that dumps her. You don't want to be the one to get dumped. So I'm kind of looking at it as I want to be the dumper instead of the dumpee. So the only way to make this happen is to take a bite at a sandwich that we all know what we're talking about, and better to take a bite now than to take a bite 3 years from now.
Where do you come up with these things?
It's just free stuff.
Along those lines, here's what happened in Scottsdale, that voters had soundly defeated an initiative to move away from rural metro and create a municipality-owned fire department. Yet, shortly after the vote, rural metro gave notice to Scottsdale of their intent to cancel the contract. They reportedly said that the contract had been determined to be no longer profitable. City of Scottsdale was given 19 months to create their own fire department. And again, they needed everything. And then the other thing I wanted to just read, again, not related to money necessarily, but rural metro has done a great job in delivering our services, but bringing the fire department services in-house offers the possibility of mutual aid and automatic aid, and it's a significant service level enhancement for our residents and our businesses, and as I said earlier, for the firefighters and paramedics and themselves. Yes, Councilman.
We don't
Vice
ever
Mayor.
want to run the risk of not having fire protection, period. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah, but also this is going to happen sooner or later. I just don't see, like David said, I just do not see rural metro just hanging in for one town. Because I'm not sure that Carefree is going to continue with them either. So I think we're being really prudent in looking at this. Dollars aside, yeah, do we want to spend money all the time? No, we don't. But at the same time, personally, we have an obligation to protect our town and the services that we provide. And I think we're being very proactive in looking at this and exploring it.
I'm really surprised that Skinflint Spellage doesn't want to save the $1 million that could go to taking care of the community center. But having said that, having said that, I'm going to bow to the wisdom of my colleagues and town manager. I'm not sure it's the right thing to do. But I doubt if it'll be a major mistake, so I will support it.
Do we have any speaker cards?
Madam Mayor?
Oh, Councilman?
Yeah, real quick, I just, I want to say too, the town over the years has been a big proponent of helping the fire department achieve the success and the good ratings that they have. I mean, the previous council, spent some money to build a new fire station and move it closer to Eagle Mountain and that kind of thing. And we get, we have the reserve money each year for equipment replacement and the ladder truck and everything. So, I mean, the town's always been a big supporter of the fire department, and I think this is just one more step in that direction.
That's a good point, Mike. I didn't think of that. Appreciate that. Did we have any speaker cards? No.
No,
I didn't
Mayor,
ask
we do
you,
not.
But I think you're right. Any further discussion? Motion, please. It's on 179. B, I believe.
It's actually page 379.
Oh, sorry. I can't see.
So I guess we're going with B. So I move that the town of Fountain Hills consider bringing fire and emergency medical services completely in-house with town personnel and bring forth a recommendation to council at a later date directing staff to develop a transition plan to implement an in-house fire department.
Is that a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right. Wait, well, our next item is a discussion direction to the town manager. Anything for the good of the order for future agenda? No? We are adjourned.